Thank you, and good evening, fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests. How many of us really feel that we're living in extraordinarily difficult times? Everyone, yeah, and it's not just a little thing, it's lots of different things, like the planet. The planet is warming up, it's got extinction issues, there's pollution. It's our physical bodies. We're dealing with more and more chronic disease. It's our mental health. We're dealing with anxiety, depression. And then there's our souls. We live in a society that's bereft of any kind of spiritual guidance, any kind of spiritual values. So tonight I wanted to speak a little bit about how I cope with living in this world at this time, and how I help myself from not going down into despair when I wake up in the morning and think, what can I possibly do to help in this world right now? So like many of you, I eat well, I exercise, I have a daily meditation practice. These are all really good coping mechanisms. But the one I want to talk to you about tonight is the one where I try and listen to the forward thinkers of our time, the wise people, the scientists, the philosophers, the religious people that are thinking in new ways and finding answers to questions about what's going on and why we're here and how can we move forward. There's many of these people alive in the world right now. There's two of them that have had a big influence on me lately. So the first one is Carolyn Mace, and she's an American mystic. She talks about the soul and the levels of consciousness. So the soul lives in my body here, in each of our bodies. And where am I situated in this body? Where is my soul? Am I here worried about my survival? Am I here worried about power? Do you have the power? Do I have the power? Am I here in my heart? Am I here in my head? Compassionate, understanding. Where am I situated? So Carolyn talks about using an analogy to better understand this. Her analogy is an apartment building with 10 stories. So where you're situated in the apartment building determines your view of life. For example, if you're on the ground floor, you do not have a view of the harbor and the ocean that you would have if you were on the 10th floor. And even though the address is the same, and the building is the same, the life that you're living and the things that you're seeing and dealing with are very, very different. The second person I'd like to talk about is a man called Matthias Desmet, and he's Belgian, and he speaks about the psychology of totalitarianism. Don't worry, I'm not going to get political. So he brings to mind and talks about how about 200 years ago during the time of Darwin, we gave up our global tribal thinking about being a group, and we also gave up the overview picture of having something bigger than ourselves that we all as a group believed in, whether it's the cosmos or God or goddesses or the tribal group thinking. We gave that up, and we instead started thinking about the scientific way of explaining life. Now, psychologists around the world have talked about what's happened because of this to all of us. There's been a huge increase in loneliness around the world for lots of people and cultures overall. And there's a cost to loneliness. The cost is that there's a void in the heart, and that leaves societies and individuals vulnerable to group and mass mind think. Mass mind think is an actual energetic entity that if people tune into that, they actually feel connected, and it fills that void in her heart. Now, the feeling of connection is a primary psychological need of every human being. And it bypasses and comes first before any rational thought. So this is an interesting concept to think about. And an example of this would be in the 50s, McCarthyism, and they had the communist witch hunts. Most of us are too young to have been alive then, but that's one that's close to home. There's lots worldwide. And because people are tuning into a mass group thing, that is more important to them to connect to that than to connect with an actual person. They get energy from connecting with that group thing, that they have lost the ability to connect with other people. That in itself allows people to actually out anyone who thinks differently, anyone who appears different, and anyone especially who is other. As Desmond says, the solution to this is to start speaking from our hearts, to become vulnerable and speak from what's true deep inside. And that this is a way of offsetting this ideology that kind of comes in when people are lonely worldwide. So I wanted to speak to you about this tonight. And I'm not a Carolyn Mace, and I'm not a Matthias Desmond, but I am a human being. And I am connected to these thinkers of our times, these scientists and forward-thinking people, because we're all connected, and each of us are connected to all of this.